What's going on, everybody? GemMint here, and welcome to the Friday night live stream. I know we don't typically go live on Friday nights, but today is a very special occasion. Before we even jump into this, I introduce our guest. Let's give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this episode. You know him and you love him, cheapgraphicnovels.com. If you're wanting to buy your Omnibus Absolutes collected editions, they sell them up to 50% off. Excellent packaging, fast shipping with great customer service. Plus, they got the bargain bin where you can get titles up to 90% off. If you mention this channel in the memo at checkout for your first order, your next order will have free shipping if you're in the United States. So check out cheapgraphicnovels.com. All right, let's take a look and see who we all got up in here. It's weird me being solo. I'm used to having Fee with me. Anyway, let's jump into our guest here. If you guys consume comic book content on YouTube, you've definitely seen one of his videos. I think about him as like the big three channels of YouTube. You got Rob at Comics Explain. You've got Eris and Tom at Variant. And then you have our guest, Benny, the Comicstorian. What's going on, man?
Well, not much. That's a heck of an intro. I never thought of it like that. Like I told you, I try to stay in my own little bubble, so I don't think much about that.
Well, I look at you guys like the Holy Trinity, like the big channels that all of us who are content creators, whether it's comic book or not, we aspire to hit those levels, man. So super honored and appreciative that you came, man.
Well, thank you so much. It was never intended to be that way. Actually, it's funny. I can tell you a little story about how that started and how like we're
Sure.
the three. It was Variant was the first, and then I was working on a gaming channel, and I was like, well, comic books don't seem to have an audience because that Variant guy only has like 100,000. So I'm just gonna do comic books for fun because I love comics. And then
Nice.
Rob started like same month. We never even talked to each other. We didn't know each other at all. We just conveniently started the exact same time. And then it just everything comic books blew up thanks to the Avengers movie. I could show you if I could show you analytics without getting in trouble. It was the day that Avengers dropped. Just whoop.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the MCU brought so many people back into it because I was into comics as a kid. As a teenager, I got out of it. But when Iron Man hit and then Captain America, Thor, the Avengers. So that's when you started the YouTube journey. It was around that time. What is that, like 2009 or 8?
2011 is when I started doing it. I think 2012 we officially we're going live and I'm going to this channel I made. It was because I was getting out of the army. So I was working at a gaming channel with the wife, and we would work on the channel at night. I'd work in the army all day. When I got out of the army, I had that military mentality of we just have to work nonstop. And she was like, no, I want to do this for fun. Don't make me do this 12-hour days just because you want to work all day. And that was why I started the comic channel. So it was around, I got out of the army 2011, like December. And I want to say like February 2012. I was like, all right, I want to do this.
And you did it. So, people ask this kind of question to me all the time, but it's like when you started the comic book channel, what were the expectations? Did you ever think it would get to a large level, or were you just like, hey, I'm just going to talk about comics. I love it. And whatever happens, happens.
Exactly that. Our gaming channel was about 20,000 and it was making like that part-time income. So I was getting out of the army. I had the medical retirement. I didn't have to worry about money so it was like, I'm going to have that and we'll do the part-time thing with the gaming channel. And I expected it to never surpass the gaming channel.
Nice.
So 20,000 subs is where the gaming channel was at. And I thought I was just focused on that. And I remember I was talking to some of my YouTube buddies back in the day, and I didn't realize Comicstorian actually started taking off because I wasn't tracking it like that. It really was just for fun. So I remember getting a call from one of my buddies, and he's just yelling at me because this channel's taken off, and I wasn't telling anyone about it. And
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, when did you realize that you had something with Comicstorian? Like, that's what it was. It's almost like you're just doing your thing, and then your friends are telling you, like, your shit's blowing up.
Right. Well, they were telling me about 30, 40,000. And that's what I was like, wait, when did I pass my gaming channel? When did this become more viable than the other thing? And so then I got it enrolled into MCNs. I got the money turned on because back then we didn't have the YouTube partnership program. You had to get friendly with people. That's the old school day. People would hold your money over your head. So I got it locked in with that. I realized it was starting to actually become something at about 100,000 because I got copyright striked by Marvel. And I was like, oh, so the big guys, they know
you made it.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. So what was going on the gaming channel around this time? You were live streaming. What type of games was going on over there?
I want to say it was mostly Skyrim. My wife had ever making like a poor man's version of a machinima. Like we would act out the Skyrim stuff, and that's kind of how we were getting our following off of that. We were doing a lot of that, and I was doing a lot of gaming lore stuff, and that was where the whole idea for the complete stories came out of. Because I I took the new Metal Gear Solid was coming out at the time. They were announcing all the new stuff for that. And I was like, well, I know people don't understand the story to Metal Gear Solid. Let me make a Metal Gear Solid. I'm like, and I'll call it the complete story of Metal Gear Solid. And so I started with that, and then I carried that over to the comic channel because I was like, well, people want to get into comic books. What if I did like Flashpoint, the complete story? And
that was the first video, or at least the one that's the first one now. The Flashpoint.
it still is. Yeah, that was the very first one. I've left
that's
that
cool.
up.
So you kind of had an idea, and it kind of you kind of hit a chord with that, with like the whole story in one video, and just continued on with that, and still do that to this day, plus other stuff, comic reviews and such.
Yeah. We eventually did the usual thing you see in normal comic book channels, because we started with the complete stories, and I would make one of those a week. And then when the channel started to pick up steam, I would read the book, go like reread it, write the script, work on the video one day, release it the next, get to work in the next video. It was just that constant cycle.
Gotcha. So with comics, so what got you into comics? Like, everyone wants to hear a good origin story. So was it when you were a kid? Did you get into it? Have you always been into comics?
My dad was always into comics. So when I was a kid, he got me into it with the story Superman time and time again. And I tell everyone, like, I'm never going to reread it because my childhood memories of Superman fighting dinosaurs, I know it's not the story, but that's what I remember the story being. I don't want to ruin it.
Right.
Because I've had people that are like, why don't you read that to us? I'm like, no, because I'll ruin my original images of what that was. Like, I got to preserve that. But it's the weird thing. You remember Armageddon 2001 with Wave Rider?
Oh, yeah, that's what Wave Rider from DC.
Yeah. That was the story that got me to be like, well, it's a crap story. Don't read it. But that was the one that got me like excited for the idea of like comics and like the world and DC and Marvel and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like when I tell people, like, one of the first reads I ever read was Maximum Carnage, and I love Maximum Carnage, and like people that read comics are like, oh, Maximum Carnage, crap, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I'm like, that's what I read. I had the trade paperback as a kid. I read it multiple times. So was that was Superman and DC? Those were the characters that were you were drawn to most as a kid?
Yeah, well, I didn't even really get much into Marvel until I was like 2001, 2002. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man got me to finally get into Marvel, and I got into Spider-Man, and all he did was whine, so I got really into like Wolverine and Punisher and stuff.
I think I always tell my wife, but she says that this isn't true. I say our first date, we skipped school and we went and saw Spider-Man 1 in the movie theaters. So what about now? To this day, are you still into Superman or Wolverine and Punisher, or have your interests changed later in life?
No, it's kind of the same. I mean, I don't really like much of Punisher at this point, just because they kind of went a weird direction with him as things went on. But when it came to like, I still like Wolverine. I'm more into like Red Hood, Winter Soldier. It's still kind of like that gritty anti-hero, I tote guns, I'm willing to kill kind of guy. And of course, Batman. And I like the idea that Batman could kill, and we could have a whole discussion on that one. But
it's weird sometimes when he doesn't kill. It's almost like, dude, you're letting this guy out. He's gonna definitely kill more people. Yeah. But what's that? It's from one story. I can't remember, but it's like, if I kill someone, there's still a murderer left, or something like that, right? It wasn't that his whole thing?
That's normally what it boils down to. It's like, if I cross that line, there's no ending it. There's always one more person I can work on. Things like that. I don't like the argument, because a Red Hood kind of proves like it doesn't have to be that way. Like,
right. Yeah. Red Hood's doing just fine.
Yeah. He's like, keeps killing. The latest one, Urban Legends. He's like, he accidentally makes a kill, and Batman's like, I told you not in my city. And Red Hood's like, what? So the municipal line is where you can't kill?
Yeah. But like, how many times has Batman got pissed at Red Hood for killing someone? It's like, dude,
it's such a repetitive thing. It's so ridiculous.
Let's give a quick shout out to Dan Demand with a $5 super chat. Says, love the channel, brother. Thoughts on continuation of Zack's Snyderverse? Benny, I defer to you.
I would love it if it could happen. I don't see it ever happening. It's just Zack Snyder's pretty much done with it at this point. I mean, I don't see us getting Ben Affleck back in that Batman shape. Ray Fisher's the like notorious at this point for his whole entire thing, and WB being like, you're fired. Like,
that's gonna be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we're just not going to get that again. And then there's always the idea of like, well, what would it be? Would it be Zack Snyder's actual, or would it be WB meddling? Or you would think WB would learn, all right, let's just let this man do his thing, because that's what they like. And what's interesting, I think Ben Affleck, when I think about him here in the news, it's like that meme where he's outside smoking the cigarette and he's like mad out of shape and everything. But it seems like he wanted to go the Injustice route, right? And that's like one of the big videos on your channel. Isn't that like the big 3-hour pre-recorded video that you did? Yeah, well, it is. Those pre-recorded videos are the compilation of us doing stuff over like a year or two. We take all the old videos. I don't sit there for 3 hours and read.
I'm like, I sometimes I struggle trying to get a 10-minute video out. I'm like, hey, okay,
our recent shift, because of the way the YouTube algorithm works now, where it's all about long watch time, we now do nothing but like practically, it's always 30-minute to 40-minute videos, and that is a struggle to keep up with. So I can't imagine doing a 3-hour video on a regular basis.
So okay, let's try, because that's, we have similar interests. We're into comics. We both have the YouTube channels. So let me ask you some YouTube stuff, right? When you make videos, I guess you kind of just foreshadowed, but you think of the algorithm when you make the video, I guess with watch time at least. But what about like SEO and trying to be relevant to things that are going on currently?
See, I'm a huge fan. I used to be more like that. So I used to be all about that clickbait, that quick thing everyone's looking for. A comic book comes out, everyone's trying to. So I would make the video as fast as I could. Didn't matter about length. It didn't matter. Just get that clickbait out as quick as possible. As the years have gone on, I've gotten more. I've gone back and forth. Like, I don't care anymore. Oh, I really care. I don't care anymore.
I do that weekly. Yeah, I go back and forth. Oh man.
Then you know exactly, because you get to that mode of like, look, I'm doing fine. I don't have to care. Right. And then like you go a week or two, and you're like, that was a really bad day. I should care again. I should really care again.
Yes.
Right now, I fully have gone into I don't care to an extent. I care more about my passion as opposed to YouTube. And I'm actually doing we were talking about it before your show. I'm doing a lot of, I love analytics. I love analytics. I love charts. I love all that stuff. And so basically back in August last year, WB decided they had enough with Comicstorian. They came in and they decided to start flagging every video to the point where it was like, okay, if WB doesn't release these, this is going to actually damage the channel.
Is that why when you have panels, you take out the words?
And I always did that because way back at that 100K marker, when Marvel copyright, the what we do was agreed upon by me and Marvel. And DC just kind of got on board, and I communicate with DC frequently. And that's how Comicstorian survived. Back in August, WB came in and said, hey, we're done with this. Yeah. But DC was like, that wasn't our decision. Let us make good on this. At first, they wanted me to just let it go and they won't do it again. And then I basically told DC, like, okay, you could do that, but I won't cover DC anymore.
Wow, yeah.
And they were like,
at this point, you're hurting them, man. Like, right? But isn't it like, what's the term where it's like a fair use, right? You're providing commentary. Well, I guess if you're retelling it or narrating it, right?
I don't even deny this. I fall into a weird gray area.
Yeah,
and this is the discussions I've had with DC, because there is a percentage of the comic that I give away where it does exceed fair use. And but there is no definitive this many panels, that many pages. It's just for me to decide and DC to go, hey, you did too much. So it's a very gray area that we deal with, but they're cool with it. Everyone at DC, it was WB that was having the issues. Yeah. So DC came in and fixed everything up. But once that actually happened, I just finally said, I'm done playing this game. Because the YouTube algorithm right now, and as you said, you're dealing with it, it wants long videos. And it wants people who will watch long videos. That Injustice video you named actually is super amazing for the channel, but also super damaging for the channel. Because if videos don't match that length, they get damaged by the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, and I guess with those type of videos, you probably have the same viewer watching that multiple times, checking back on it and like hitting it up. Let me give Justin Loke some love real quick with a $5 super chat. We appreciate that, sir. What's your excitement level for Flash and why? I'll set this one off. I think that's a really good opportunity to reset, right? DCEU. And do Flashpoint. And then the thing is, when they hired Ben Affleck, who I love Affleck from Mallrats days, right? He was old, man. It's like you're starting a cinematic universe with this older Batman. So this could be a way to give us the younger Batman. Let's get some more building as from new heroes to the older versions of them. What do you think?
I think that's the best thing the MCU did. They hired everyone at an age that they can carry forward in the MCU, so that when they eventually did retire, it made sense.
Right. That's the only thing that I got worried about, like Spider-Man. Like in the comics, it wasn't that the Avengers were here for years and years, and Spider-Man shows up as a kid. Like he wanted to join Fantastic Four when he first showed up. So I always thought that was a little off, but then again, they get to tell the tale of Peter in high school and then in college and all that stuff. Real quick, shout out to DJ Links with the $10 super chat, just supporting my guy. Appreciate that. What do we got? Nobody except me with the $5 super chat. Said had to jump from Twitch Gem with the OG Weekly Poll alumni now. Good looking out on the Collab Benny, Absolute Comics, and Marvel/DC. So Absolute Comics, that's your it's a separate channel, right? Where you do the weekly comic reviews?
Right. Well, so we do that. That's our live stream. So the Weekly Poll he mentioned was our original podcast we did for like 5 years. And it ended up separating because everyone just had differing ideas what to do with it moving forward between me, Sal, Rob, and Joel. And so after like 6 months of not podcasting anymore, I got really like, I started missing it. So me and Sal got together and made Absolute Comics. So that's the version we've been running now for the last year, where it's the two of us with more. We have a very lined up idea what we want it to become and what we're doing with it.
So you're still reading comics every week. How big is the poll?
I'm not too bad anymore because I hate to admit it, but I have two guys in my team, Dan and Andy. They do the actual reviews, so I just get to read what I want now. Technically, the poll is every single DC, Marvel, and indie book that comes out every week.
Right.
I probably read like 10 books a week now.
Well, I usually do that, and then it's like if I'm not liking a book, I'll drop it. Like I got a buddy, Rockin' Robbie on Pop Culture Philosophers, who I love. He'll read everything regardless, but I'm like, I'll give it 3 issues. If I'm still hating Amazing Spider-Man, I'm not going to keep reading it, and then my poll starts getting more manageable as I get rid of stuff I'm not really enjoying.
That's exactly what I do. Like, and that's why I put the other guys in the review show, because their job is to read everything.
You get to read the crap.
Yeah, as the years went on, I'm like, I want to enjoy this job still. Like, I've been doing this for 8 years. I don't want to like hate comic books, so I make adjustments to the way I do it so I can still enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah, you want to do what you love, but you don't want to hate what you love because you're reading shit, right? So speaking of reading comics, we got a Bloodshot 12 with a backup story by you.
Yes. Finally got it released. It's a funny story about how I got to do that. I actually wrote it 3 years ago because I was friends with the Valiant guys. I was friends with a lot of independent companies. And at the time, I was still really focused on growing Comicstorian. And you said it before the show. Every comic reader's dream is to write a comic.
Yep.
And I said that in passing to the Valiant guys. I'm like, hey, I really would like to write a comic, but I don't know what that entails. I don't want to overcommit. I don't want to be a part of something that's going to have me locked into a run if I can't do it. I don't know how much work would go into writing a comic. And their suggestion was, well, how would you feel about writing a backup?
Right.
So I was like, I'll do backup. Yeah, that'd be great. One off, just a quick backup. You guys can put it in a book, and they were going to do it as a free comic book day in like 2017.
Right. A little late.
Yeah, a little late. And so I was totally on board with it. And it became actually my horror story of writing a comic, because I took off 2 weeks of Comicstorian. I'm like, we're not doing anything. I made tweets and posts. I'm like, I'm not doing it. All I'm doing is writing this story. I want to make sure it's solid. I go back and forth with the editor, go back and forth with the artist. I want this to be my greatest debut ever. And I got so into it. And then what happened was, if you don't know, with Valiant, the team basically swapped over. Like their parent company came in and said, hey, we're changing out the whole team. And that fell into a crack. And so I spent all this time and got so invested into it, and it just disappeared. And that was that. I kind of got a little like bent out of shape about writing comics. I'm like, if this kind of thing can happen, and talking to other creators, that does happen a lot. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put all my time and sweat and effort into something and never see it come out.
Yeah. That sucks that it happened on your first go around too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, dang.
So I didn't even have like 3 or 4 and was like, oh, those were good. This was the bad one.
Yeah, and I thought it fit you so well because it was a retelling of his origin, and it's like that's what the Comicstorian does, man. You narrated Bloodshot, so for anybody who wanted to jump on, this is what he's all about: who he is, who his enemy is, what his powers are, and all that kind of stuff. So,
right,
cool,
and
man.
so it was funny. So I let it die, and everyone would be like, "Why don't you write a comic?" I'm like, I got a bad experience, but due to NDAs, I can't talk about it. So maybe one day I'll tell you the story. It was 2019 hit, and Greg, our mutual friend, the great PR guy from
shout out to Greg.
Yeah. I hit him up because I'd met with him again, and I'm like, hey, would you guys be cool if I just talked about it? I won't say anything negative about Valiant. Regardless of me being salty, there's nothing negative to say that would actually reflect poorly. I just want to tell the story of writing this and my experience with it and things like that. And his reaction was, wait, you wrote something?
Yeah.
So they didn't even have the files. I had to send the files over because I had the files.
That was a good era for Valiant too, man. I jumped on that Valiant train when they started doing all their deluxe editions, and I like that. The thing about like I feel like you're a superhero guy, right? Is it, am I correct in saying that's what you prefer with
definitely
reading?
lean towards the superhero.
And me too. And, a lot of people are always saying, read indies, read indies. And I'm like, yeah, but indies are very rarely superhero stuff. It's a lot of situational stuff like zombie apocalypse or whatever. So Valiant did that really well on an indie superhero shared universe. And I really got into those characters like that. So you mentioned podcasting, and you run a couple of other channels. You got the Comicstorian, that's the main one. You have the gaming channel. You're doing all these podcasts. Like, what's a day in the life look like for Benny, the Comicstorian?
Recently it's gotten a lot more hectic because my branding's all over the place right now because I'm trying so many things. Because like my goal right now is, can I recreate something as big as Comicstorian and not use Comicstorian to get it there? So I'm trying like all these little fun projects a day, but I basically wake up at like 6 a.m. and by about 8, I'm working on something, either scheduling, because we have a team of like almost 9 people at this point, between writers and editors and things like that. I got rid of writing. I got rid of editing. I just go, hey, I like this book, turn it into a script, and I'll read it and then move on to the next comic. So a lot of times I wake up, I'm moving from like 6 to 8. I get my breakfast and stuff. 8 o'clock onward, it's emails, meetings, phone calls, working it all out. I try to record stuff between 9 to 12, just like banging out audios as quickly as I can with breathers in between. Take some lunch and then back into meetings till like 5. And then I play video games all night.
So it doesn't sound like somebody who's just having fun on YouTube. It sounds like a regular job, basically.
Yeah, it's the meetings are more annoying than I thought. And if you got sponsors, you know how that can be.
The sponsors are pretty cool. Usually I meet more with publishers, and when we talk about Greg and Valiant, and I think about Dynamite, they're really seeing the impact that YouTube has and how it could really help their brand. So I kind of think it's cool for them, working with us, and we're fans. So like you said, when Marvel copyright, when you got the strike, you're almost like, they know who I am. It's kind of like rewarding for some reason. You know what I mean?
It is weird. And to this day, I don't know if I like it. Like, I just did a coverage of an independent book, Nottingham #1. It was like this like noir Robin Hood thing. And like they sent me an email. We read this and it was amazing and we loved it. And I'm like, I feel weird because like, I don't know. I've always felt weird whenever people tell me that, like, I go to sleep listening to your videos. And I'm like, I don't know if I do that. But I yell a lot. So I've always felt weird about that kind of thing, though. Like the publishers and people acknowledging me and things like that. I think it's part of the reason we live up in Colorado, just away from everyone. So I could show up at conventions and go home.
That's it, right? Now we have another mutual interest, man, with the collectibles. So the statues.
Oh, yeah.
So Greg mentioned that you had a sideshow collection. We kind of talked about it backstage a little bit. So how long have you been into collecting statues?
When did that Wolverine Hulk come out? The one that you said you got?
2017. That's when I got into it as well.
Because I've progressively upgraded as my channels have done better. Because like you start with like the little $50 trinkets or like a Pop Funko collection, which I still have some of from the old days, and then you kind of upgrade to like the $100, $200 statues, and then there's eventually that threshold where you just get your first sideshow, and you set it up, and you're like, well, this looks lonely. I need more.
There's something about statues where one is not enough, man. There's some kind of
and then you start theming them. This is the Batman side. Like I got one in the old house, I had like the Trinity section, and then over here I got the Overwatch ones, and then over here this is the Prime 1 Studio ones, and this is over here first for figure. Like each had their own little areas.
Of course, and that's why I say it's dangerous when you get into a new line. So I got into the Berserk. Have you ever read or watched Berserk, the manga anime?
Oh no, I've read the manga. I've seen some of the animes. I've not seen that new one by Netflix or whoever has it because I don't like 3D animation anime. I'm not a fan of that at all.
That's everyone's nitpick about it, that the CGI was terrible and the sound as well. But anyway, so I got into that, and then Prime 1 makes those great Berserk statues. So then, boom, I have a whole downstairs Berserk shrine. It just gets out of hand. I
so wanted those so bad. I was really on the fence with those. I told you, we ran out of room at the other house, so we moved. So we had more room.
So when you're house hunting, are you looking for like, okay, where's the statues going to go?
This time it was that. And we legitimately had that discussion because my wife loves them as much as I do. She steers to the gaming, I steer to the superheroes. So it legit was a actual discussion. Like, okay, so here's the space that these statues go up. These are going to be the Besta boxes or whatever, the IKEA boxes. Okay,
the Besta.
Over here's where we're going to put the tall ones, and over here's
exactly. I'll tell you, all the statues are outgrowing the Bestas. Now you got to go garage shelves or Maji cases or some big boy heavy duty stuff.
I don't understand the philosophy behind these. Like they just announced another Tomb Raider one that's like that 1:3 scale.
The one
Like at what
thirsty,
point
yeah.
do you guys realize we're having problems like putting these up? Like
Well, the statue community say that we're our worst enemy because someone's buying them. You know, we're buying them, so they keep making them. And yeah, the statues are getting bigger, more expensive. The boxes are becoming 2-3 boxes, and it's getting a little out of hand. Sideshow still does a really good job, though. Most of their stuff is pretty well sized, and the weight and the shipper is not too crazy. But when you get to like the Prime One and XM Studios and those guys,
Prime One and
expensive.
XM, I don't think they care, man. They're just throwing as much weight as they can. Like I was lifting some of these Assassin's Creed ones from no, these ones are Pure Arts.
Pure Arts, yeah.
They're a new company I didn't even know about. They're doing the Ubisoft stuff.
Yep.
And they're just like, these statues are 50 pounds a pop. They're like 50 inches across and they're 42 inches tall. And I'm like, what am I even supposed to do with this?
They have no regard for space.
No.
They don't care. But so what was the most recent statue you got? Can you think off the top? I don't know.
I bought all the Assassin's Creed ones.
That's the most recent ones?
Yeah.
They have I think Ezio, they have Altair, I think, and they have I didn't play the most recent game. I think it's in the desert.
They got Bayek from the desert. They got the Viking character. She's she came out a while. She just came out. Well, she will come out. And then they got Ezio, Altair, and they have one from the Greek game, but it wasn't made by Pure Arts, so it's hard to find. It was made by Ubisoft, like their own studio. So I do have that, but it looks weird with them because it wasn't made by the same people.
Sometimes we try to do that too. You try to pair like maybe Sideshow X-Men with XM Studios X-Men because they made this character or their version is better than their version. We got some people in the chat. Mike Spina says you can never have just one. Scott says, yeah, he messed up going 1/3 scale with his DC statues. Shout out to my man Economic and Comics for the $5 super chat. Appreciate that. Moriarty, you know, I mentioned this backstage. So Sideshow just announced their new Galactus maquette, and I was wondering if you didn't have the old one, you'll probably get the new one. It's kind of a no-brainer. However, the old one is kind of like unbeatable, man.
I'm looking at the new one. Which was the old one?
The old one,
I'm sure I've seen it.
You've seen it. It's huge. He's got his hand out like this, and he has like a switch out where you can have a miniature Silver Surfer or a miniature Nova. So you could have one or the other heralds.
I'm adding it to my cart right now, the new one.
Pre-order live. We used to do that. We used to have a chat called Immortalized in Stone, and that was a big thing. Like, do it live. Do the live pre-order. Josh Phelps says no decency. Let me check out the chat. I know I've been ignoring you guys a little bit. Future Killer says Benny needs to show his collection off. What we don't need is Benny to do statue reviews because then I'll be out of a job, man.
I want to show it off right now. It's like all over the place because we just moved in and we're trying to get like some of this display set up. So I can't show it off right now.
Future Killer says love Comicstorian. Thunder Comics asking Benny. Now this is a hard question for me. I never have just one favorite, but is there a favorite statue in your collection?
No, not one in particular. Because I have so many that I enjoy. Like my wife gets all the Dark Souls ones. We have all the video game ones. Then I got all my superhero ones. You know, actually, I could say I have that Venom that they came out with a little while ago. I actually really like that Venom. He doesn't go with anything else.
Which one is it?
I'll see if I can find him on Sideshow right now.
Is it the one where he's on his hand and he's kind of jumping like
one hand? Coming through his hand. You probably got it. I mean,
I've had it, but like I told you, and I think was it you or you said your wife is very organized, doesn't like a lot of clutter because that's how I am.
My wife is like that.
When I start feeling that there's too many statues in a room and I walk in, I'm like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous, you know, and I'll start selling stuff and then getting new stuff in and all that kind of thing.
You ever forget you bought statues? When we moved, we were unpacking, and I'm like, when did I get the Snyder cut statues? I don't even remember getting these. And like we're unpacking them, like I have Batfleck, Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. Where did these come from?
I've been pretty good at that with statues, but I have bought statues that I've sold before that I was like, oh, you know what? I need to get that one back. And I used to be really good at that with Omnibus as well. And then I guess in my old age, I started buying stuff that I already had. And I was like, oh man, I did it with a Berserk book. I was like, I didn't know I already owned it. So that definitely happens. But people used to ask me, and I'd be like, how could you not know you own something already? But sure enough, it happened to me.
I mean, I tell you right now how it happens. If you're doing it for the collection's sake, like you have that beautiful display behind you, you just kind of forget it's already in there because it's not like you're flipping through all of them every day.
Right, for sure. Aaron Osborne said, live pre-order, Gem, do it for real. Oh, shout out to Comic Toms in the chat here. Said he's always looking and asking me for help. to do new themed comic book content. Any ideas? Benny, I'll defer to you. Any ideas on new comic book thing? I mean, if you had it, you might be the one doing it though. So I don't know if you want to give
my
that
most
out.
recent idea I'm doing. So I don't know if I can give that away.
Yeah, I do content with Comic Tom, and I have a lot of creator friends that we like to share a lot because honestly, this is like you learn as you go. There's no manual for what we do. It's just kind of like what works, what doesn't work, what works for you. Maybe I can try that. Yeah. So, we like to share like that. And I think he asked me.
I'm honestly all for everyone doing the same content because I get that question a lot. Oh, Rob did this, or Valiant did this, or Variant did. Like, everyone does all these different things. And my always answer has always been simply put: there's only so much comic book information. You just got to go to the presentation you like the most. But at the end of the day, Rob telling you about Moon Knight, you telling them about Moon Knight, me telling them about Moon Knight, it's just the same stuff regurgitated from a different creator.
I know me with other like statue reviewers, like my guy Mr. X. He has a channel, the Extreme channel, and it'll be like a race. Who's gonna review this first? Who's gonna get it first? Get home, drop the review, and you want to be the first one. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? Or are they watching because they want to know what you think about it? Not necessarily.
It's that right there. I stopped racing a year, 2 years ago now. Just stopped caring about trying to be the first guy to get the information out. And I noticed, other than a slight dip, it wasn't worth enough to go ham and try to be racing.
But you had that feeling too, like I got to beat Rob to this. Injustice issue 4 review.
I remember having the conversation with him because like we were doing that. We were having and he was like, "Oh, I beat you totally at this one." I'm like, "Rob, honestly, man, I think I'm done racing." He goes, "No, that is no fun anymore." And I'm like, "I know, but I want to sleep in."
Yeah, right. Like I don't want to watch Falcon Winter Soldier when it first comes out at 3 a.m. so I can do the first review on it or whatever. Who we got a super chat here from Alex Martin. $10 super chat. Appreciate that, sir. Say what's up, guys. Big fan of both channels. Have you seen that Age of Apocalypse Wolverine by Iron Kite Studios and that Green Scar Hulk by Queen Studio? So I did see the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. I thought it was a custom at first, but apparently Iron Kite got the license. I'm not sure if you've seen any of these ones. Are you familiar with Queen Studio stuff? I probably shouldn't tell you about these guys.
I think I try to avoid other studios because I end up buying all their stuff.
Well, you've probably seen these life-size busts that they use medical grade silicone for the skin. It's not polystone.
I have seen that, and I'm not gonna lie, my mind gets really dirty when I see some of those.
Yeah. Those things are crazy, man. I've owned a lot of life-size busts. I got out of them. I find that I think they're impressive because they're life-size. They're the same size as a human head, but they're a little bit boring for me just having the bust without having like a full body pose going on and everything.
I like the action poses. I like when they're doing something or that you feel like they could actually be coming to life any moment.
Yeah, I like dynamic stuff too. I guess, with me, if it makes sense for the character, like I could see a stoic Alex Ross Superman, like he's just standing straight up, but yeah, for the most part, I like it to be dynamic. Let's see. Yeah, Griffin X is saying it's all about the creator who talks about it, not the content itself. Yeah, I try to tell myself that when Mr. X puts it out first. I'm like, God, now I got to follow this.
You'll hit the point that I did. You'll eventually do it for so long. You'll just be like, I'm just going to do it for fun, and I don't care about racing anymore.
I think I'm there because we talked backstage about the Iron Studios Sentinel dioramas, and like I told you, everyone has theirs and did their review. I'm the only guy who ordered it and still doesn't have it yet. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait till an X-Men trailer drops, and then I'm going to drop this statue, and then we'll see what happens. Let's see. Oh yeah, Iron Studios pushing that new Mortal Kombat line. They have a great 1/10 scale line coming out, man. I'm going to definitely pick those up, and you can't really get too much trouble with 1/10 scale.
No, I got the old school. They did Scorpion Sub-Zero from Sideshow.
Yeah.
And I stupidly skipped out on Sub-Zero and only got Scorpion. And now I regret it because I'm like, why did I only get one? I need the other.
I had all those too. And I got crazy with you. I think you're talking about the ones where they're on the little black base, right?
Yep.
So I ended up getting crazy with those. And I bought Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Reptile, Smoke. And then I bought 3 other ones that somebody custom painted to be Ermac, Rain, and Noob Saibot. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I have all these guys with the same pose. And then the clutter kicked in, and I was like, you know what, man? It's time to get rid of these.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Let's see what we got in the chat here so I don't neglect you guys. Let's see. People talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier. You said you did catch the season finale on that
I did watch that. Yep.
So I
discuss it.
Yeah, I guess we can talk. I can talk a little bit about it. I definitely like how they did comic version Sam Captain America.
I mostly liked the suit. it felt a little stiff. Like
I
he
can
seemed
see
like
that.
he was doing the old school Michael Keaton turning. Like
Yeah, it looked a little bright. The white was a little white, and I don't know. It was brand new suit though. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean I liked it overall. The only problem I had with the last episode is I feel like there should have been an episode between 5 and 6. Because it feels like he opens the box at 5 and 6 just gets right into it. Like we're not even gonna take time.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to spoil it. Some people in the chat saying don't spoil. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it though. I'm looking forward to what they're gonna do in the future on Disney Plus, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to like say my thoughts without spoiling. I'm used to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We do a lot of our shows the day of when these things drop unintentionally. It's just how it all worked out. So, but yeah, no, I mean it's really good. I'm excited to see because it's all over Twitter now. So if you missed this one and you're watching, but they announced Captain America 4.
I saw that.
Yeah, I think they unintentionally announced it to like the screenwriters attached. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think and we never really got closure on Steve Rogers, right? So I would love to see old Steve Rogers, maybe with Sword or wherever he's at. They said he was on the moon. I kind of think he might really be on the moon because why else do they keep saying that? Given like whatever direction or whatever.
Make him the man in the moon, man on the moon, the man on the wall. I think is what they call it when he's actually up there. Because white Nick Fury's up there right now, technically in Marvel.
In the 616.
Yeah, technically.
All right, Benny, I got a couple of rapid fire quick ones that I want to give you here. I might clip this out for a solo vid too, man. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Now, this could get very controversial, so if you don't want to choose one or the other, just pass.
Okay.
No worries. All right, so
pineapple on pizza is great.
I was gonna put that. Video games or comics?
See, at the end of the day, as much as I love comics, it'd be video games if I had to pick one or the other.
It seems like YouTube-wise, it was your first love, right? So
it was my first love. It is also a how fast I consume comics versus how fast I can consume a video game. If I have only one left, I could live longer with video games and comics. I'd be like, oh, I've read this already.
Gotcha. Okay. So PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
Okay.
That's
Marvel. No brainer. PlayStation. Dang. Marvel or DC?
Oh, see, I hate that question. But I'll go with DC because that's what started my love for comics. That's what started it all. I got the Justice League sleeve. So
now, MCU or DCEU?
Oh, definitely MCU.
Okay.
If anybody says DCEU, you're crazy at this point. Like, if the Snyderverse existed, I'd be on board. If everything was like Joker, I'd be on board. But DC doesn't know what they're doing, so
it's all over the place, man. You got Shazam, and then you got Joker, then you got Aquaman, and then you got Birds of Prey. It's like, what are we doing?
You got Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84,
right? Within the same franchise, they did it. All right, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter?
Street Fighter.
Oh man.
Come on. What? Okay. What's wrong with Street Fighter?
Street Fighter or Injustice?
Well, Injustice. Then we'll go to that side. Yeah.
I'm a big NetherRealm guy. Okay. Spider-Man the animated series or X-Men the animated series?
X-Men.
Now
I saw Spider-Man, but can you tell me you actually remember a lot of Spider-Man? I don't know why.
First
I just can't remember it.
I remember the Black Suit saga when he went crazy and he tried to kill, what was it, Rhino, and he was losing it. Mary Jane was super toxic and she threw herself off the building just for him to jump over and save her. I loved Spider-Man the animated series. X-Men is great too, but X-Men the animated series or Batman the animated series?
Oh, Batman. I used to watch that with my dad and my brother. We just all sit down and just watch the Batman the animated series. Too many good memories attached to that one.
Batman is great. All right. Now, when it comes to comics, art or the writing?
Art for me. 100% over the writing.
So you could get through a comic that has maybe not the best writing if the art's good.
Right. But but the writing could be the greatest thing ever. If the art's not up there, I can't read the comic.
Gotcha. All right. Last question. Would you take the serum?
Yes.
You know what's funny? They asked me that and I hesitated, but I'm like, yes. Everybody said they would take it. So we're all not good in Baron Zemo's mind, I guess.
I think Baron Zemo's dumb. I would take the serum. Why wouldn't you?
He's anti-serum, man. He's got a thing about serums. I don't know. Let me ask you this. So you have the backup story in Bloodshot.
Yeah.
Had a bad experience with it coming out. How did it feel when it came out and it finally got published? And I'm sure you had reception and everything.
Oh, it felt great. I want to do more. I'm gonna see about. I mean, this came out right in the middle of my move, which was like the worst time ever. It was supposed to come out like I think late last year, but the pandemic obviously caused a lot of delays. So by the time this came out, I was moving, and I've got to follow up on a lot of offers and ideas, and I'm trying to see what I can do. I want to write something. I would love to just fund my own independent book and just say screw it, but I got to find an artist. I don't know about doing that one. So I don't know if I'm just going to try to do pitches, and I don't know where to go next. I just don't.
Yeah, the thing is, when you have a platform, it's almost like the music industry, right? Like you could just be independent because you already have an audience, you know. So,
like I could go deal with DC and Marvel or any of the independent companies or whatever, or just make my own thing. Like,
right, exactly. All right, well, hey, Benny, appreciate you coming on here and shooting the breeze with me here. Everyone watching, obviously, you know, Comicstorian. I'm sure you've seen his videos, but if not, go head on over to the channel, subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff. Benny, anything you want to leave us with?
Check out Bloodshot issue 12. And Gem, I've watched your stuff for a while. Thanks for finally having me on. Probably could have just reached out, but
you kept begging me, and I was like, man, fine, I'll find a night where I could get him on. But I appreciate everybody watching. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and everyone watching on the replay. You guys stay minty fresh. Peace.